Now, what is a good SAT score? Every test taker has asked this question at some point in time, and in this video I'm going to be talking about what the SAT is, the average SAT score, the ranges at different universities, and what score you need to aim for. In this video I'll also be talking about the different score ranges and the bands at different universities. Let's get into it right now. Firstly, let's talk about the SAT. According to the College Board, the SAT is a multiple choice pen and paper test administered by the College Board. The purpose of the SAT is to measure a high school student's readiness for college and provide colleges a common data point to evaluate all the students. Now, this is the standardized measure which all students, whether in-state, out-of-state or international, will be evaluated by. Now, let's go to scoring on the SAT. Now, I have talked about this in other videos and subscribe to the channel for such content. But in short, the SAT is scored in a range of 400 to 1600, where 400 is the lowest score you could get and 1600 being the highest. The average score among all test takers is around 1060 to 1070, and very few students score very high scores or very low scores on this test. So in the next part of the video, we will be talking about the range in the test scores. Now, when you search for the SAT scores to apply to a university, you always get a range of scores. This is because at a university, the students are of a varied SAT range, as universities don't only use the SAT as the admission process, but also look at the applicant's profile as a whole. So the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile come into play here. The 25th percentile is the score at which 25% of the students have scored under, and the 75th percentile is the score where 75% of the students have scored under that. This basically means if you're on the 25th percentile, you're on the bottom 25% of the class, and in the 75th percentile, you're on the top 25% of the class. So in this section, I'm going to be talking to you how the 25th and the 75th percentile apply to you as an applicant. So when we talk about what score you should aim for, the best thing to do is to look at the universities you're applying to and figure out what SAT score ranges they have. Let's take the University of Wisconsin for example. It has an average SAT score of a 1370 and the 75th percentile is a 1460. So if you have a 1400 on the SAT, you're a pretty good fit for the university. And with a score of above 1460, the school will be much easier to get into. Again, all of the other extracurriculars and grades must be good as well, but all in all, you have above a 50% chance of getting into the university. So to figure out what score you should aim for on the SAT, the best thing for you to do would be to look at all the schools you're interested in and aim for the 75th percentile at those schools, as that will give you a pretty good chance of admission. But again, just a small note, I recommend trying to score as high as possible on the SAT, as a higher score will increase your chances at all of the universities. So when we talk about the SAT score, we are mainly talking about percentiles. Now a score of 1500 is the 99th percentile on the test, whereas a score of 600 is the first percentile. So what are the other percentiles? Now just a small note, I will be using Prep Scholar for this chart, so all of these numbers could change in the future as well. So according to the chart, a 1350 is the 90th percentile, a 1250 is the 80th percentile, a 1200 is the 70th percentile, a 1100 is the 60th percentile, and the average is the 1060, which is the 50th percentile. 1000 is the 40th percentile, a 900 is the 25th percentile, and an 800 is the 10th percentile. Now in the next section of the video, I'm going to be talking about the different score bands at different universities and what score / what percentile you need to get into the different types of universities. So let's get into that right now. Now, when we talk about universities you can apply to with a score in the 50th percentile or a score around 1100 on the SAT, you do have a lot of options. A few regional colleges, smaller state universities, and a few of the smaller private universities as well can be applied to the score in this range. Now, universities under the Cal State system like Cal State Northbridge and universities like Indiana State fit under this category. These universities have the average SAT ranges around the 50th percentile at around 1100. Now, if you score a little higher in the range, like around 60 or a 70 percentile with a middle to high 1100 score, you can get into a few more competitive schools like Rutgers, UMass Boston, and Texas State. These universities are a little more competitive than the earlier set of universities, but still are quite okay to get into with a score in the 1100s. Now it starts to get interesting. When you're on the top 25% of the test takers with a score of above 1250, you have a huge number of options. There are the well-known huge state universities like Penn State, University of Arizona, the University of Oregon. And you also have many private universities like Drexel, Temple, and USC. All of these schools have the average SAT range around 1250 to the 1300. And these schools are really good and have great campuses and academics and have really generous acceptance rates as well. Now we come to the 90th percentile. A score of around 1300 to 1400 will put you in this percentile. Now with this kind of a score, you're looking at applying to top maybe 50 to the 150 ranked schools in the states, like William and Mary, Boston College, University of Florida, UT Austin, or University of Wisconsin at Madison. Now in this range, it slowly starts to get a little unpredictable, as these schools on average have lower acceptance rates, and these schools may decline amazing applications and take in weaker applicants if they think that that person is a good choice for the university. Now we come to the 95th percentile, the top 5% of all the SAT test takers. A score of around 1400 to 1500 will put you in this range. Now the schools are among the most prestigious in the world, and they are ranked in the range maybe around 25 to 15 states. Now some of these universities are Boston University, NYU, UMichigan, Tulane, and Tufts. But again, bear in mind, these are some of the best schools in the world, and their admission processes are very unpredictable and have so many other factors involved in them other than the SAT scores alone. Now we come to the top 1%, the 99th percentile, a score of above 1500. Now these schools are the most competitive in the country. They are the T20s and maybe some of the T30s as well. Universities like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, MIT, Caltech, Carnegie Mellon, Vanderbilt, Rice, all of these universities fit into this category. Now these schools will not accept an applicant solely because of their SAT score. A lot more factors come into play. All the way from your letters of recommendation to your extracurriculars, to your community service, to your essays, and the list goes on. These are the most competitive schools in the world, and their admission process is the most unpredictable as well. So in conclusion, I recommend studying for the highest SAT score possible and using the above comparison only while applying to schools. I will be making more videos on the complete university application process and also on standardized tests, so subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more content. Now if you found this video informative, please like it and share it as well. And if you have any questions on the complete university application process or on any standardized tests, comment down below as well. I will see you in my next video.